Hi guys, welcome to Youth Connect. And so not long ago in Kenya, you may have read or seen what happened, that young people decided that not today. They will hit the streets to demonstrate and protest against a bill that was introduced in Parliament, and it was a sight to see. Many have said that it's time that young people are not timid. We cannot separate this conversation from us here in Ghana, as protests and demonstrations have yielded some very good results. Not long ago, we saw the Fist the Country demonstration or protest, and many others that happened even pre-independence era. Now today, we're trying to be assessing the national impact of public demonstrations and protests. And I'm joined by a very fine gentleman with a very fine middle name, Gregory Pilkington Amoah, who is the Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent at Pan-African Television. Gregory, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
In all the history of demonstrations and protests, which one has your very full attention?
I think I wasn't born then. I don't think my mom was even born then. But I think it will be the 48 routes.
Okay.
Because it was one of the underlining issues that, springboard Ghana's drive to attain self-governance from colonial rule. And if you delve deeply into how, even as far back as then, the people were able to galvanize their ranks and push against what was then an oppressive rule, it tells you how advanced even the Ghanaian people were at that time. So I think in my lifetime, I've seen a few of them. I've seen Occupy BOG. In fact, I've covered a few of them myself. Occupy BOG protest, Occupy Julobi House. I've also covered Arise Ghana and a few others. I've covered about 6 of them. But every time I cast my mind back to the 48 route, I am inspired as a Ghanaian to, push for the betterment of the collective good of Ghana, not just for a few privileged people. Yeah, so.
I mean, for somebody who's covered about 6 of these protests, share your experience. Did you at one point feel like a youth who was also protesting, or you just was able to manage and then you will just do your work?
Well, so one of the tenets that govern this profession of ours is that you try as much as you can not to show colors. So there are times you are there, in fact, you are resonating with the concerns of the people, but for the essence of the work you are there to do, you have to shield it. But then deep down, you know that, okay, some of these things that they are pushing for are things that affect everybody. I mean, I'm Ghanaian, the things that affect you are the same thing that affect me. So whenever I attend these protests, I'm just happy that we are using the lawful means that is granted by the Constitution itself, and that these have never escalated to a point where there's anarchy. That's one thing that I like so much about some of these protests.
I mean, if you followed the protest in Kenya recently, that kind of yielded instant results, which I can also liken to the 48 riots that you said. Yeah. But in Ghana here, the recent protests that we have had, would you say that it's yielded any result at all?
I won't say it has, but in a way, it has also awakened the mindset of the average Ghanaian that there's so much more government can do, which government is not doing. One thing that affected so much is that most of these protests are on a political front. Now, let's be honest. If an NDC government is in power and there's a demonstration spearheaded by the NPP faction, there's no way they will heed to that call.
Okay.
Because anytime if they heed to it, it is an admittance that the NDC, the NPP are right. Sorry. Now, if there's an NPP government in power and then the NDC is spearheading a protest against them, even if the germane issues they are calling for are real, they would not admit to it in public, because it will dampen the show of confidence in them. So I think that's one aspect we are not getting right, because if you watch some of the most successful protests we've had in this country, from Kumi Prekon to 1948 route, they were not blanket political, even though there were some actors in there who had connections to parties. It was by virtue of the fact that the Ghanaian people had realized that government was not serving their best interest, and so they wanted to, of course, protest against them. in recent times, most of the ones we've seen, especially under this current regime, has been spearheaded by people who are exposed one way or the other to a political party, not only the NDC, but to parties who are opposed to the government. And so the government is always reluctant because, politics is a game of confidence, it's a game of numbers. Yeah. So the moment you are admitting to these things, then invariably you are trying to cave in,
right.
And then the other faction is gaining an upper hand over you. And then when these happen, it affects your numbers. One thing we don't do in Ghana is we don't do these opinion polls. If you go to countries like the US, they do these things a lot. So even years before an election, we are well aware of how each person who is in the election is faring. So even with now, we know how Biden is faring, how Trump is faring. So if you are doing
by the way, did you follow the debate?
It was tiresome. I actually watched the debate in 2012 between Mitt Romney and Obama, and the fall off has been massive.
Yeah,
it has been very massive.
Yeah.
Very massive.
You liken it to the age of Biden? True, would you say?
Biden has gone through a lot. He's lost a wife. He's lost a sister to drug addiction. He has a son who is an addict now. He's had brain surgery, a lot of things. Biden has served the US, I think, from his mid-40s.
And was very witty in his
age
when he was young. So
I think it's just normal that age is catching up with him.
Okay.
I think it's just normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to have taken you there, but back here.
Yeah, so back to the issue. So when these protests are spearheaded by persons who are opposed to government, then it becomes difficult. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's correct, but that's what is real. Government, it becomes difficult for it to then accept that I'm not doing things right, and then it also has to come out and counter. And this has been what we've seen under the NDC, NPP, duopoly ever since we came into this current regime.
The kind of protests that we have here in Ghana, what makes the Kenyan one quite different? Recently, the recent Kenyan one, what makes it different?
So the Kenyan one was an amalgamation of trade unions, young persons who were just tired of being shortchanged. Now, Ghana, we had the chance to do that with e-levy. Because if you read the things that followed this Kenyan one, they were akin to what happened in Ghana, e-levy.
But you see, for the Kenyan one, I'm not able to point out to a place where it looked like somebody started calling for it or somebody started chanting for it. Like what we see Oliver do here in Ghana. They pick a date, they look at the location, it's gone through a process to go to the police, it is approved and all of that. For the Kenyan one, it just sprung up on us.
And that's dangerous because it shows that it's coming from the people who ordinarily do not have voices to be heard.
So how did they come together? I'm still understanding it.
If you read carefully what followed the I think the Arab Spring, this was how it is. Through the internet, through conversations, through meetings, it galvanizes people because then you're able to convince people that I'm not doing this for partisan interest. Look, we live in this country where under Mahama there was a group called Occupy Ghana.
Yes.
And then most of them are benefiting from government now, whether we like it or not. So sometimes we need to be honest. Most of them are. Now, I tell you, if, I'm saying this conditionally, if the NDC happens to win the election, mark my words, a lot of people we are seeing being dissident towards government right now will be beneficiaries of an NDC government. So it tells you that.
Has it always been like that in demonstrations years ago? Has it always been so?
Most of the time. I mean, I work for a man who was instrumental in demonstrations in Ghana, Kwesi Pratt Jr., and he's one of the finest men I've ever known. And I don't see him playing partisanship.
He says it as...
Yes. And you see, that's the kind of dissidents we need. We need people who, even if it's by a government who they have close ties with, black is black, white is white. If it's wrong, it's wrong. We just call them out. Calling out the government does not mean you want them to be voted out. It means you need them to abide by the social contract they entered into with the people when they came to them for their vote. And that is what I believe we should do as a country. That's where Kenya got it right. Because if you followed carefully, it got to a time where even the Law Society of Kenya were supporting these guys. We saw clergymen stationed at some point giving water to people.
This was when the protest started already.
Yes.
Many have said that these young people didn't have any form of leadership, but they still were able to conduct a proper protest. I won't say that's proper protest, but they were able to
drum home the consent. Yes.
And then we saw their president now, in a way, to withdraw that bill.
Yes.
And would you agree that yes, there was no leadership, or you are with the people that said that no, there was leadership somewhere, but except they have not come out to publicly announce that, oh, we're the ones that galvanize these people.
Exactly.
So which one do you agree?
I agree that there was leadership.
Okay.
They were just not serving their parochial interest. They were acting in the interest of Kenyans, especially the youth. And so they don't, you see, you don't need to be a star to be able to galvanize people. You need to bring out the fire in them. You need to make them recognize what they are missing out on. You need to paint a picture to them as to what they deserve and what they are not getting. For able to do this, you inspire that confidence in people, and when they're out, look, not even guns can, harden them off.
Yeah. Well, how would you say that the Ghanaian authorities have responded to, how do you think they have responded to protests and demonstrations?
I think it's been abysmal.
Okay. Would you from 1 to 10?
I think it will be 3.
Wow.
Yeah. Look, the mere fact that the state always goes to court days before a protest, they wait and let's say 2 or 3 days before the protest, they go to court to get an injunction against this protest. It tells you how much of a failure we've been. Because look, the Constitution itself grants Ghanaians the right to peaceful and lawful assembly, to embark on protests and demonstrations. It's granted under the Constitution. Of course, the police has some mandate to regulate how these things happen. But the right to demonstrate is a right. It's a constitutional right.
Yes.
And so you don't suppress it. You don't. The key way of a government to gauge how best its governance sits with the people is by how they are responding to you. So if you are a government in power and you have people protesting against you, you don't have to be arrogant. Just come out, make concessions, meet them halfway, and then form some, let there be some common ground. That's how you govern.
Yeah.
But if you want to suppress them, that's where it gets to a point where when the people are no longer afraid of the power of the state, it's dangerous. That's what we saw in Kenya.
Yeah.
When people's brains were blown out and they were still, forging
marching
ahead.
forward.
That's scary. That's very scary.
Can you walk me through the legal framework? Say, in this country, we know what you have to do if you want to go on protest. But knowing this and knowing also that protests and demonstrations are your right, how have we used the legal framework to suppress it? What is the legal framework like? If I want to do a protest now, what do I have to know?
Right. So the right to protest is under Article 21(1)(d) of the Constitution, first of all. But then the lawmakers in their wisdom also sought to regulate how these are held. So there's an act called the Public Order Act 1994. So I think Section 1 grants you the inherent power to embark on these, but you have to inform the police service first because they are in charge of the interior of the country. So
that's my challenge, something that is inherent.
Yes, but because it's a gathering, you need to regulate it a bit. Your rights end where another person's rights begin. So there has to be some way of superintending how these are held. So the police has a mandate under the same act to show you the route you should use, how to manage the crowd and all those things. So in all this, the act seeks to form a consensus between organizers and the police. Now you guys have to sit down and then agree. Now there was one demonstration, I think in 2022, where they sought to go to Jubilee House. They were told it's a security zone.
Occupy.
I think that was in 2022. That was by Arise Ghana.
When they said Occupy Julobi, they.
No, I think that one was in 2023. This was in 2022. They sought to use the road that passes in front of Akufo-Addo's residence, I think, in Nima.
And that will not be the Fix the Country as well.
I think that should be.
One of those. They're quite similar.
I can't remember. I was tear gassed that day. I had to run for my life.
Were you?
I was tear gassed. I had to run for my life. I had to run for cover. And while running, I was reporting. That's the beauty of this work. Yes, the police have a mandate to regulate the route that you use, because some places, of course, are security points. You cannot allow masses there, because then you don't know who will act in a certain way that might be inimical to the state.
Okay.
But the police also have to accept that this is an inherent right. So you are not doing them a favor. You are helping them exercise their right. So there has to be some common ground between all, persons who are doing these, routes and then the state as well. So I think that's where we've gotten it wrong. We act as if we are doing people a favor when they want to embark on this, but it's their right.
Maybe we must protect people for themselves.
Oh no,
we can't leave them.
I mean, they can go out and voice out their concerns. I mean, government is formed on their behalf. If you read the preamble of the Constitution, it tells you that the sovereignty of Ghana is vested in the people, and then the government is merely acting on behalf of them for their welfare. And so, if you're acting on behalf of people, and these same people you're acting on behalf of, for want to go out and tell you that the mandate we gave you is not being exercised in the manner in which we wanted, why should you,
Gregory, do you think that our culture plays a role in the way we demonstrate? Yes, again, and our best point of reference is the 1948 riots, where you would see that these were ex-servicemen. These people have some form of boldness training already. But today, as a country, our culture of do you think that it plays a role? And I like to think as Africans, we may share certain cultural similarities with Kenya, but I'm seeing Kenya today, right? And I'm asking myself, as a country, do you think we can ever get to where Kenya is? First, the country was quite brutal, but do you think that we can get to this point?
I think we can. I don't pray
it's not far-fetched.
I don't pray we do.
I'm thinking our culture can give a certain natural stop, like it will stop us in a certain way. You don't think?
I think we're just not angry enough.
Okay.
The Ghanaian people have come to accept that, look, after every 4 years, we have the chance to vote. Vote you out if you don't want.
Wait.
That's one thing we've come to accept. I think maybe it's because of our dark ages through coup d'etats and killings and these things. So we've come to agree that, well, we don't have to go to these extremes. Of course, you can do what you like. If it comes to the time where we have to, vote, we will decide on whether or not we want to keep in power. I think that's what the generality of the Ghanaian people have come to accept. That's why we are not reaching these levels. That's how come even when people go out to protest, you hear the average Ghanaian saying, we'll have the time to vote, we'll have the chance to vote, and we can protest in our own way by voting you out or keeping you in government. So I think that is what is shaping us. Even if you go back to 48, those routes were not, in fact, there were some key issues that precipitated the route itself. It just took the killing of these ex-men for us to say that enough is enough, we're tired. But there were some actions by some traders and others.
Yes, that's what actually started it before.
But they were quiet because they wanted to be decorous with how they did it, until these people were killed and they were like, enough is enough. We just
so in referencing that, would you say that very calm protests really never yield results?
The very essence of a protest is to protest.
It's to protest.
So how then do you go calmly?
Yeah.
But it has to be within the confines, the remit of law. You don't have to. Yes.
Is this unlawful?
This is unlawful. But you see, there's a thin line between these issues. You see, when people are angry, in Chi we say Papa Neria, Bonisong. So when you push people to the wall, sometimes you do not have a right to determine how they react, being it lawful or unlawful. You do not really have the right to determine how they react. And I think that's how come we are seeing the government of Kenya sit back and say, look, these are the people we are bringing these laws for. If they say they do not want it, we might as well just quit.
Are we a timid youth?
In Ghana? Largely, I think we are.
We are?
I think we are. But it's also largely because of the things I said, that we have come to believe in the democratic process so much that we believe that one of the major ways of protesting is voting. And I believe that is right. I believe it's right. But sometimes we also need to put governments accountable. We need to hold them. We need to make them understand that you don't have to wait for 4 years. Sometimes we go for 4 years and then 3 months, 4 months for an election, we are seeing roads
being constructed. But you have been here. You have gone to cover protest many
yes.
times. So it's not like as a people, when we see government doing something that's not right, we're seated down. No. As a government, as people, we go, we do it. Is it that government is nonchalant, or it's just they know that we can't do our worst.
Yes.
We can't be like Kenya. You think in looking at all the ones that you've covered, yeah. Would you agree to that?
Government has not tolerated us well as far as protests are concerned. Now, I always go back to Ilevy. Look, Ilevy was brutal. It took members of parliament. I was there at midnight on the floor of parliament exchanging blows. It was annihilating to watch persons who have been voted to make laws.
That's basically
reach a point where the law is no longer applicable and they have to exchange blows. It was crazy, borderline crazy. But then it shows you the level people can go. In fact, if lawmakers in the Chamber of Parliament, in one of the sanctimonious places in Ghana, that is where our laws are made.
Sure.
That is our sanctuary. That is where every Ghanaian is represented. And if it takes these people to fight, it tells you how bad things are.
Wait, was it a Photoshop, or did I see a Kenyan youth holding the mace in Parliament? Like the thing that shows authority. Is it a real photo or is Photoshop?
I think it's real.
Because in Ghana, that would mean an overthrow of.
Yeah. And I think we saw that also on the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. People entered the Capitol and people were on the chair of the speaker and all these things. See, some people would want to go to extremes.
Yeah.
There are some bad nuts. I don't think holding the mace is any sign of, no, these things are not right. Drum home your concerns, but do it in a peaceful manner.
You see, now there's an adage. They say, oh, bomb but oh, tell me how I'm
yeah, I agree.
You know, and as I will pyramid, oh, tell me, baby, I'm from
we say, there's one adage, we say, oh, boom, Abraham soon. And then we also say, we're soon,
yes, they say it in every, and I like the way you have put it better in tree, because I don't, it's as if when it is violent, then government is panicking.
Yes.
But when it is calm, it just becomes another group of people marching, and then it ends there. I mean, in wrapping our conversation, how can a person or how can a citizen be part of meaningful demonstration? And for you, you've taught us the legal framework and how it is a right and how it must be done in the confines of the law within it. But how can I be part of a protest that will give me results? And what's your view over Oliver? What's your view about Oliver and his approach?
I think he's doing well. He's doing very well. He's a person that I think we need more of them. Because, mind you, if we're able to hold government accountable, we'll get results. It may not come now, but it will definitely come. I think we just need to find a way to hold government accountable. And, you know, I do not agree with vandalism and these things, but I do agree that...
You're naturally a gentleman.
Yes, maybe. But also, I do agree that protests should be an occurrence. It should be a continuum.
So it can become, but
very
occurring.
We can even do it every 2 weeks. Until government hears us out, we need to continue protesting, because sometimes when they sit up, they lose touch with the base. So every now and then we need these large numbers of people picketing, protesting, to show them that, look, you have this number of people out on the street now. If you have this number on the streets, how much more the people at home who might not have been able to join? So it tells government that you're not doing things right and you need to be on your feet. I think government also has a duty. We should agree that, look, the mandate you are exercising is on behalf of a people. And we don't necessarily have to wait until election year to protest. But every now and then, if we feel you're not serving our collective interest, we can hit the street and protest, and to show you that, look, you're not exercising the mandate that has been granted to you by these same people. In a manner in which they believe in. You know, the Constitution embodies the aspirations of the people of Ghana. That's why every action government does has to be in conformity with it. That's why every law made in Ghana by I think Article 11.1 has to be in conformity with this law. And if there's any part of any Ghanaian law that is not in conformity with the Constitution, it will be declared void to the extent of that non-conformity. it tells you that the constitution is the embodiment of the Ghanaian aspirations. So if you're a government and you are not acting in consonance with these aspirations, the people have every right to protest against you. And you also have every right to accept them, meet them at a common ground, and then make some concessions.
Okay, so Gergi, I hear us say that, oh, the power is my power, we gave it to you, so you must, serve us because we can take the power away. If I have this pen and I give it to you, hold this pen now. You hold it physically, so I think you're holding it.
I'm holding the pen.
Do I still have it?
You have it.
Really?
Yes.
How do I have it?
So, one thing is, you know how equity works. You're holding it on trust. I'm actually holding this pen on trust for you. So you are the beneficiary of whatever this pen accrues. That's why it is unlawful, and it's very unlawful for me to act in any manner that's detrimental to your interest.
What you're going to do with the power is a discussion for another time.
Yes.
But the question of, do I have the power? Because if you had the power, the Constitution will not provide 4 years later for you to not to go and exercise.
So
this is because I've given you the pen. I can just ask for it right now. But because of the way the Constitution has put it,
framed,
you do have the power. But at the time that you have given it to the government, you don't have the power.
Yes.
That's what I think. You have to now wait for the Constitution to now give you the power back again. Give you a certain
to some other person. Well, I side with your argument, but also there has to be some laxity given to the government to implement policies. I mean, government can't be seen to be recalled every time. It deals with the kind of people we vote into power, whether they're serving our interests. That's why it behoves on us to make informed decisions every time we go to the polls. Because while you're voting, you need to know that the person you're voting for, you're giving this pen to Gregory. Gregory will only come back in 4 years' time to render account for this pen.
Between that 4 years, it's not with me.
Yes. That's how come you can use other constitutionally provided mechanisms to hold me accountable for holding this pen on your behalf.
And I think it's because of this system. That is why government will have that lackadaisical behavior towards protest and demonstration, because they know that, it's a reminder that I give you the power. But as to whether to say, do you still have the power?
That's a question.
No, it's a question for us to be asking ourselves.
I do agree with you when you say it's due to our framework, because if you go to a country like UK, they have a system where there is a vote of no confidence. So if there's ever a time where the government of the prime minister formed on behalf of the monarch is not acting in the best interest of the people, and then there's a vote of confidence, the government is dissolved. That's how come if you see a prime minister resign from Britain, there's a cascading effect on every other member of the cabinet. We've seen it with May, we've seen it with Cameron, we've seen it with Johnson. And then I think we saw it with Truss last year or last 2 years.
I didn't follow his.
Yes, I think Liz Truss was in power for 45 days. And then when she left power...
Oh, Liz Truss, yes.
So it happens in that way.
I think she made us women...
proud for 45 days. But I mean, the Queen made you proud for so many decades. So
but we'll agree that at the time that Liz it was a hard time.
Yeah, it was. And
I think it was quite honorable.
Yes, but then because her governance was not in conformity with the aspiration of the British people, she had to leave. That is a system that works. That is a system that exerts accountability from people. I think every now and then, when we are calling for amendments, these are some of the key things we should be asking. We should be asking for ways of holding government accountable, even in the interim. And I tell you, if we had a way of voting government out mid-term, we would have seen...
That's a nice way to describe it, a mid-term.
We would have seen different levels.
Have we had any government official elect themselves to say, you know what, I don't think if I look at the way I have managed a certain situation, it's not the best, so because of that I'd like to take a step back and then allow have we seen that? It happens a lot in the UK.
I think one in my lifetime, again I would like to say in my lifetime, one of the few ones I've seen, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, MP for Pro East. He was Prime Minister under John Mahama, and when we had this Dumsor crisis, he came out and said that if I'm not able to solve Dumsor within this period, I would resign. Indeed, when the period came, he couldn't do it. He honorably resigned.
He did.
Kwabena Donkor, yeah. I think that should be in 2015. I was still in SHS back then. So,
It'll be something that I should also go and look for and read.
So I think we've had these quite a number of times. This is one of the most prominent I do remember. I'm sure our viewers might also remember quite a few.
Maybe. But if it's not easy to remember, then it's not a common practice in Ghana.
Exactly. But this is one of the key ones we've had in recent times. Yes.
Anyway, we've seen how technology and social media played a major role in the Kenyan protests quite recently, and many other protests that have been happening quite recently, even for coups that have happened in the sub-regions. You would realize that social media and technology played a role. Are we using it in Ghana?
We are, but mind you, it's a tool. The people who man the tool have to tell the tool what to do. So if we're not galvanizing our ranks well, the tool is just a tool. If we do it well, it can be a medium for meeting whatever aspirations we have. I think the Ghanaian people have to be brave. We need to eschew partisanship. Look, once we vote people into power, we need to understand that if it's an NPP party, the moment they are voted, it's not an NPP government. It's the government of Ghana. The government of Ghana has a responsibility to the people of Ghana. When it gets to election year, the vice president, he's the leader of the NPP, but he's still the vice president. He's an integral part of the government of Ghana. If he manages to win the election on January 7th, in fact, on the night of January 6th, and then through to midnight of January 7th, he is the vice president. He ceases to be vice president on January 7th at 12 a.m. At that time, by the grace of God, if he has won the December 7th polls,
he'll be in charge.
He will assume the power when he's voted for as president of Ghana. If he doesn't win, he ceases to be vice president of Ghana on January 7th. So he goes back to be a member of the New Patriotic Party and a private citizen. But as it stands, even though we are heading towards elections, he's still an official of the government of Ghana. He's the second highest ranking official in Ghana. So this is how we should view things, that when you're voted for, even if I'm NDC and you're NPP, once you're voted into power, you are government of Ghana. You're acting on my behalf. So we need to eschew partisanship and fight for the collective will and the aspirations of the Ghanaian people. And when it gets to the campaign period, we cannot, come out with a garment of partisanship and do whatever we want to do.
I was asking a question about Oliver Baka as to his approach to protest in this country. Would you okay it?
He's a radical, and I don't find anything wrong with it.
I like him too.
It's not my way of protesting, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. In as much as he's able to galvanize the ranks to hold government accountable, and he's acting within the confines of the constitution, it's right. And we may differ on opinions, but my opinion is just my opinion. His opinion is just his opinion. But in the end, if he's working in the collective interest of Ghana, I believe he's right. And that's how I think we should view things. That even if you do not agree with people on the manner in which they are doing things, if they fall within the remit of the law and they are working in the interest of Ghana, if you are not going to join them, you have no business criticizing them. Just take a step back and find your own way of holding government accountable. That's how I believe we should, look at these things that happen, because they're exercising a constitutional right, and you are in no rights, higher than any person. So if they want to protest in a certain manner, and that manner falls within the confines of law, then I believe we should comment or keep quiet.
Well, in conversations around protest, and you understand that it is quite dicey.
Dicey,
quite,
yes. If you don't take care, you're going to.
I see you and I trying to hold back, and
to be legal.
maybe to be safe, we'll end it here, end it here, and then maybe as and when we've seen few announcements of people trying to still gather and all of that, and you come and share your new experiences.
Maybe
when
I might do a special report for Youth Connect.
So beautiful.
Maybe
That
I'll
would be
do-
so beautiful.
Yes, yes.
But thank you so much for talking to us. I like your calm nature in trying to send the real message across. But thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Pilkington.
Pilkington. This
Pilkington,
name has caused me
a lot.
distress, a lot of distress. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, MFA.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you. Stay well. When the news breaks, when decisions are made, when society says it has to be a certain way, as young people, are we ever part of the conversation? Hi, my name is Emefa Akosia Adeti, and I invite you to be part of discussing relevant issues, be it social, political debate, religion, or culture. Let's have our say. On Youth Connect, we shall spark conversations, challenge what we ought to, and find solutions that benefits us all. On Youth Connect, we shall bring to the fore your passion, most importantly, your voice. Don't just watch or listen, act. It matters to you.